Hello, everyone. My name is Tooways Asmal. Welcome to another episode of Two Ways to Skin a Cat, a show where we talk career experiences, entrepreneurship, and investments. The main aim is to show that there's more than one way to be successful other than just climbing the corporate ladder. We are live on LinkedIn and YouTube, and the show will be available on podcast by tomorrow morning. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on that notification bell to get automatically notified when the next episode comes out. If you're watching us live, drop a one in the comments so that we know we're not talking to ourselves. And drop a two in the comments if you're watching the recording. My guest for this week is Mary Fourie, lifestyle financial planner and financial coach. Mary, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks for inviting me.
Let's jump straight into questions. Tell us your story, where do you come from, and even outside of work, who is Mary Fourie? Give us the backstory.
He is very furry. Well, firstly, you say my surname better than I do. I'm the English girl with Afrikaans surname, and that is part of my story. Born in Cape Town, I grew up with two parents. Little brother came along, and then my father passed away when I was 5 years old.
I'm sorry.
So, yeah, things happen, life happens, and it's definitely a pivotal moment in my journey. I lost the Afrikaans influence, hence didn't end up at Jan van Riebeeck as he might have had me. Went to English schools in Cape Town, and obviously a very big impact on my family, on my world, the people around me, and on the money in our lives. Losing a breadwinner, my mom was at home with two kids. So that definitely has influenced how I ended up where I am, doing the kind of work that I'm doing, because I grew up looking around me and being very curious about, what my mother needed to do. She needed to go back to work to bring up two kids. She was a school teacher, and just noticing how tough it was for her, and the things that she needed to do, decisions that needed to be made. And I think very early on, I realized that this thing called money was quite tricky. And if I wanted to have a less stressful life, I needed to understand more about it, figure it out a bit. So I started work when I was 15, went and got a job, decided that if it wasn't going to be handed to me, I could go find it. And so I started working in retail in a clothing store, which was both a lot of fun and terrifying. I'm an introvert. And I can still remember that first day standing with the hangers. You have to like space them with like a finger between each hanger. And someone stood next to me and I needed to speak to them. And how physically scary that was to go, hello, how can I help you? To a complete stranger. But one of the best life skills I learned was how to get comfortable with talking to people that you don't know, and how you can build relationships by wanting to help and wanting to serve, which also is part of the story of how I got here, a life in the service space.
And also, so that's your very early self. And after that, to where you are now, and maybe on top of that, what you do outside of work.
Yeah, so I didn't follow the traditional route of finish high school, go study, know what you want to study, know what you want to be. Some people are lucky enough to have that calling. My mother was one of those. She knew when she was 10 she was going to be a teacher. I played with different ideas. I was going to go into graphic design at one stage. Then I was going to become a lawyer at another stage. So like completely different sides of the spectrum. I started studying BCom law through UNISA, which is probably a lot easier today with online learning. Back then it was distance. Your study guides came in the post and they sent you a page of correction, well, a book of corrections. And you had to correct your study guide first because they printed them 2 years in advance and the content would change. So it was really, really, really hard. I was working, loving working. I moved out the house pretty early, and didn't quite have this clear idea of like, this is it, that's where I'm heading. At one stage, I believe because I have a job, I don't need to study. In fact, I didn't even think I needed to finish high school. I was like, I'm earning money, I'm doing this thing. But very grateful for the people around me who supported me and convinced me to finish school. Grateful for the bits of BCom law that I did finish and pass. It's been fundamental in the work that I do now, having that foundation, even if I didn't complete the degree. Continued working in retail until I fell pregnant with my daughter. I was 23. She was an absolute gift and light of my life, but I realized that working in a store, in a shopping mall, would be quite tricky with having a child as well, not being able to easily get out of work to go to her if I needed to. So I took some time off work. One of the benefits of being curious about money was I was pretty good about it. I learned about saving. I read a lot about like investing. So throughout my sort of growing up years, I managed to save money. I bought my first computer when I was 18 myself. It was so exciting. I'm a little bit of a nerd in that way. And I had savings so I could take time off work to have my daughter. Then got into online marketing for a gaming company. And again, not quite sure what I was going to do with it, but it was a job and it was service. It was the support center. People would email in with their problems. I would help them get the technology to work so they could play the game. But after a while, it got less and less satisfying. And that was about the time when the company grew from 5 people, I was the 5th employee, to 75 people. It was one of those startups in tech that just went like exponential within 4 years. And so being a generalist as employee number 5, you're doing a little bit of everything. Now I was pushed into a specialist role, which was email marketing. And I found myself feeling very unfulfilled and a little bit uncomfortable about what I was doing. I was sending out 1 million emails a day to get people to play slot machines on Facebook. At the same time, I was taking responsibility for, I now have this daughter, I want to set up my financial world officially. So I was doing all those grown-up things like getting a retirement annuity and starting investments and savings and setting up a will. And I was looking at buying a property. And I had gone through the experience of having a financial advisor who I loved, like a woman who was incredible. We bonded really well. But because of the nature of how she got paid, she left the job she was in because she wasn't able to sell enough to earn enough. And so I lost my advisor. And I was thrown back into the pool of this business and lost because now I'm just a young 20-something-year-old starting my journey. No one really wants me because I haven't got any money for them to earn from. And I felt lost. So I went on the search for a new financial advisor. And through that process, he offered me a job and said, well, you've done so much homework and research already, and you're actually quite good at this numbers game. Would you be interested in doing it as a career? And that is how I got to where I am.
Okay.
I can see that golden thread of helping people.
Definitely. That's a very, very interesting story. But now the question that the first time I saw your profile, I needed to ask this question. What is a lifestyle financial planner? Because you mentioned financial planner, but how is
Yeah.
it different to a normal financial planner? What's going on there? Explain that to us.
Yeah, so that was one of the interesting things. Like, get into financial services, there are all these weird titles and names, and like, what do they actually mean? And I think it's a really good question for anyone to ask if you're dealing with someone in financial services. Like, how does what the title translate into what they actually do? So for me, what I loved about Lifestyle Financial Planner is it's combining the life we live, like what's important and meaningful to us as human beings, with the money side. And it speaks to one of the things I really believe is that we can plan to live the lifestyle we want to live, both now and in the future.
Okay. And I also see you also a financial coach. What
Yeah.
is it? How is that? Because I mean, I've got a coach. I have had a few mentors. How is a financial coach different to a business coach or a career coach, for lack of a better word?
Yeah. Simply, it's just another niche. So you can be a financial coach and not be a financial planner. It's just focused on conversations around money and money beliefs, the things that impact a person's relationship to money, And for me, combining that with the financial planning is really, really powerful, because it's not just about the numbers. It's about who are you as a human being and what do the numbers mean to you, as well as some of the things which we don't necessarily get taught in life, but like, what do we think and feel and believe about money? Like, what impacts our relationship to money?
For the audience, if you've got any questions, please add them to the comment section now. We'll try and get to all the questions towards the end. I noticed that you've got a few certifications in your name that I've never heard before. There's PCC and RFP. What sort of professional would be, firstly, what are those qualifications, and what sort of professional would be interested in attaining those?
So the RFP is connected to financial services and financial planning. So in South Africa, we've got the Financial Planning Institute, and we've got 3 designations: your RFP, your FSA, and your CFP. So you might have heard of a CFP. That gets spoken about a lot as like the gold standard of financial planner. RFP is the first level towards that. So for me, it was important to align myself with a professional body in financial planning. Then the PCC is on the coaching side. So now that's the coaching world, where we call it credentials, but it's the same as a designation. You've also got 3 different levels. You've got ACC, PCC, and MCC. And the PCC is the second level towards MCC. And of course, each of those stands for something. So RFP is Registered Financial Practitioner, and PCC is Professional Certified Coach.
So am I correct? Only somebody interested in financial planning or in coaching would want to want to go for these qualifications?
Yes. So there's both of them require you to have some form of qualification, like formal academic qualification or training. You've got to have a couple of years of experience working or coaching in either of those spaces. And there's an exam as well. Each of them requires you to prove that you've got the knowledge and understand the concepts.
Talking about financial planners again, some financial planners are very focused on selling policies, and that can sometimes paint the rest of the industry with a negative brush.
Yes.
How do you get your clients and other professionals to look past that negative perception?
Sure, it's difficult because that's a lot of us have parents or friends or family that have been burnt by those, they call them police mosa, from the 80s and the 90s. There's not very positive connotations with it. So for me, it's about the kind of experience a person, whether they're a potential client or client, has when talking to me. For me, it's about what you focus on in the conversation. There's also new ways that financial planners, advisors, and coaches can get paid. And I'm very passionate about that, and part of a small group of planners and advisors that are advocating for what we're calling fee-based financial planning, where instead of us getting paid because we sell a product or policy, we get paid because we offer a service and we invoice a fee for it. So more aligned with the other professionals in the world, like accountants, like lawyers or doctors, where it's not about the diagnosis and the product or the medication, that one gets. It's about the service that you have to help them make choices about what to do with their money.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And please now correct me if I'm wrong, but my initial impression is that one big issue is mindset around money. And what is one big mistake that you see people making over and over and over again?
Mental accounting. So
Unpack
I've
that.
sat in a room with people and gone, who's got a budget? And everyone's like, yes. So I'm like, okay, how do you keep it? How do you do it? No, it's in here. And so they keeping up and creating their own form of stress in mentally having to account over and over and over again how much money they have at any particular one moment in time, and how much is going in, how much is going out. Whereas you can make your life a lot simpler by working with a pen and paper and a notebook, writing it down, using a spreadsheet if you're comfortable with a spreadsheet. There's an app for that too. Yeah, I also love spreadsheets, but I've also learned not everybody does. So I'm a big advocate for like pencil and piece of paper, printing out your bank statement or credit card statement and taking a highlighter. And there's apps for everything nowadays as well. So yeah, for me, a mistake is not, because it's connected to mindset, not being conscious and aware of where your money is going. Like I have a saying and a belief that you should tell your money what you want it to do for you. And if you're not aware or planning what you have and where you want it to go, and you're not telling your money where it wants to go, other people, like marketers, advertisers, the man on the other side of the debit order, they're going to tell your money where to go.
The man on the other side of the debit order. That one needs hope. But so this is one question I like to ask all my guests. But based on your initial story, it would probably be even better. What is one piece of advice you would give your younger self?
Oh, yeah, that is a tricky one. I'm proud of my younger self. Like, she did well. I partied a lot, and I also saved and could do things like buy myself a really, really cool computer. Um, Maybe it would be to be kinder to myself in some ways. Um, Maybe it would be to stick out a little bit longer in the studies in some way too. Although I don't have regrets. Um,
Can I ask, when you
yeah,
say be kinder to yourself, do you mind giving us an example?
yeah. I think I have big dreams and goals, and if I think of my entrepreneurial journey, I've pushed myself hard, and sometimes being less kind to myself than I could be because I'm like, no, I have to do this thing and I want to get it done now. And even a lot of late nights, um, tears where I've had an expectation of how fast something should happen, and then there's the universe and reality in life, and that doesn't always meet our expectations. And this year for me in particular has been a big one in noticing that I'm the one that's getting in my way. And it's how I see the world and perceive the world. And if I'm a little bit gentler and maybe take things a little bit slower and I'm more relaxed, it's actually a lot more fun.
It's amazing how we can be our own limitations. Eh? That's a bit scary, but once you realize it, it's brilliant.
It's freeing.
That's true. That's true. Any last few words from you, or anything we didn't discuss that you'd like the audience to know?
Um, Life's not perfect. I think for me, that's been an important thing to share. It can feel like we have to have everything figured out and have all our ducks in a row, all of the time, and kind of either know where we're going or make it look like we've always got our stuff together. And yet, what's right for each one of us? What's right for me, the right job for me, the right family setup, the right amount of money. It's different. It's going to be different for me, different to you, different to the people listening to this conversation. So I think, yeah, spend more time getting curious about what's right for you, finding your own inner voice. It makes it a lot easier.
That's a great way to end. The show has been live on YouTube and should be available on podcast by tomorrow. If you are watching on YouTube or listening on the podcast and it's added value, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on that notification bell to get automatically notified when the next episode comes out. Mary, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks everyone for joining us for another episode of Two Ways to Skin a Cat. Goodbye.